Welcome back to another edition of Around the WaterCooler. And today we're going to do something a little bit different because we recently had a conversation with three inspirational women in tech that carried on long after we completed the episode. So if you didn't see it, I urge you to check out part one. The description will be in the link below. But today I want to invite you back around the WaterCooler where you can hear more about the conversation with three high-performing women in tech who are going to be sharing their personal insights into the challenges they have faced and what they would share with the next generation of women considering tech as a career, and what actions organizations and society can take to increase the number of women in tech leadership roles. I think it's so important to bring in the next generation along because the three of you are incredibly successful. And I don't even want to say bring in the next generation because it is women of all ages, at any age, can enter the tech industry. For example, there's something predicted like 3 million jobs shortfall in cybersecurity alone. And there's such a big push to educate and train as many people and get people from all backgrounds and walks of life into cybersecurity because it requires diversity of thought to solve problems and hacks, etc. So I'm curious, what advice would you share with the next generation of women or women of any age that want to enter the industry? Maybe they're a bit fearful. Maybe they've heard all the stories about it's a male-dominated environment and they're a bit self-conscious on what they're going to expect. What advice would you give to those women watching today? And Rachel, I'll throw that to you first.
I'm going to start with the real positive. The amazing salaries, ladies. You know, financial freedom is freedom for women, and the salaries are brilliant. You know, whether it's private or public sector. It doesn't matter what role you're playing in technology, your value is higher if you've done that in technology, whether you're a PA, a product manager, a project manager, if you've got experience in technology, you can ask for more money. So that's what we need for women, as far as I'm concerned. So number one advice would be know your worth. Really drill down on your skills and your strengths. Make note of them, swim in them, market them, put them out there for people to make sure that you are coming across as a powerhouse of skills. And that powerhouse can be kind, thoughtful, considerate of others. It doesn't need to be bragging or, it can, of course, be that as well, but it doesn't have to be. Just having that quiet confidence in what you bring to the table. The fact that, a person can have the personality type to make anybody in a room feel comfortable, that means you've got amazing power. It's just not the power we often hear about. The number one thing I found hard to learn was about networks and networking. I have always thought doing a good job, going in, doing your best, getting results is what was going to make me stand out. And unfortunately, in our infrastructure and our institutions, it just doesn't. Being the hardest working is not what's going to get you to stand out. Obviously, being good at your job is a base requirement we all need, but actually working smarter, not being so busy that you're not talking to anybody, not being so busy you're forgetting to go to events. Quite often I'll go to IT events and it's predominantly men. That could be because there aren't that many women in IT. I suspect it's because they're all really busy at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday doing other activities. So actually making sure that you put time and invest time in that network, getting the sponsorship, the allies. You can do that through asking somebody to be your mentor, but actually making it more about that person being a champion of you and your career, for me, is really powerful. Making sure that you're publicizing yourself and your abilities outside of your line management, never letting one individual decide your career trajectory and what's possible for you, never letting somebody tell you what job you should be doing, what they think your strengths are. It's useful to get feedback, but you can choose what you do with that. You are your own kind of truth, if you like, as cheesy as that sounds. So it's you who needs to know what you bring to the table. And as I say, know your worth, know your value, and, ask for more money. Make sure you're doing your research about what people might be earning, challenging that, making sure you're talking to colleagues. What do you earn? I'll share mine if you share yours. Finding out you're earning 5, 2, 10, 50,000 less than a colleague is incredibly painful, but it's a good lesson that you won't make the mistake again next time. So that's a few thoughts from me.
Brilliant, love it. And Dax, if we've got a young girl, a student that's studying to enter a world of tech, or equally a mum that wants to reskill and enter a career in tech at any age, what advice would you offer to anybody watching?
Fairly simple, really. I mean, I'd say be yourself and follow your own path and follow your own goals. Set those for yourself, and don't set them because there's a trajectory for women, or set them because they're your goals and that's what you want. But I would also say, make sure you do expose yourself to different environments, different learnings, different people, because that will open up your world in terms of where you actually want to be. And that's really important. And the analogy I would use is, if I remember going into a school and, I asked the children, what do you want to be? And I think about 6 out of 10 of them said, I want to be a teacher. Now, why do you want to be a teacher? Well, one hypothesis around it is because actually your role model is the teacher, and that's what you've seen in your life. So as women, I would say, by all means, that's one path. But if you want to learn about tech, then you have to go and chat to some people in tech and find out what that is like, because you may want to be in tech, but how do you know you want to be in tech? So that's a real deep self exploration, and then set it because that's who you are. And that will work itself out in society. It doesn't need a whole tech impetus for women. It needs us to let women be their authentic selves at whatever age that is. And, the younger the age, the better that we take away all the preconditions, because most people in society, are about expressing themselves, and, to be seen and see other people is really, really important. So I think as part of that process also, the person, the woman, or whoever it might be, will also then see other people more, and then you become more absorptive of all those things that are out there, and it becomes part of your natural path and your journey, rather than something you're on a crusade to make happen. So be your authentic self, open yourself up to new opportunities and new conversations, and see what you want to do next and go for it.
Excellent. And I think it's so important to also highlight that for young people in general, there's so much pressure on them at such a young age to, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And of course, not many people have the luxury of knowing exactly what they want to do. And as a result, people want to retrain in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and eventually find their way. And there's going to be a lot of people listening, particularly women of all ages, that want to enter a world in tech. So, Jyotsna, is there anything that you can add on there for any advice to that lady that's listening?
Yeah, sure. Great advice from both Rachel and Dax there. I think for me, it's really important to know that you are enough. I think that self-limiting belief, and this is for men and women who might be listening. I think, the biggest thing you've got to overcome is your own self-created, self-limiting beliefs. So the first thing is I tell everybody, don't ask permission, seek forgiveness. And this was told to me when I was an intern, like all those, I want to say decades ago, and it stuck with me. It is a fantastic thing for a young sort of, university kid to sort of hear. And I've taken that through my entire career, and I think that inherent curiosity, be curious, ask questions. People are always so happy to be able to share their knowledge and share their network, because it's an ego boost for them. But more importantly, they feel that they have something that you value. We feel good that you've asked us today because you think that we have something of value to share with you and your audience. So I think curiosity, asking questions, and being quite open and transparent about the fact that you might not know exactly what you want, but you have some characteristics you're looking for a job. And, particularly with young people, as you said, who might not know what exactly they'd like to do, my advice is don't focus on the title of the job, focus on the emotions you want to feel in the workplace. Or think of the characteristics you want in the role. For example, you want to be in a role where there is opportunity to speak to people. to present, or you might want to do a role which is more about translations. How do you take technical information, translate to a business audience, or vice versa? Or where you are doing investigations because you like sort of, investigative work. You want to like working on your own. You know yourself very well. So if you focus on the characteristics of the role, then what happens is that the industries become easier to understand because every industry will have such roles that needs these characteristics. And when I talk about emotions, how do you want to feel when you're in office or when you're working with your colleagues? I want to be quite challenged, for me, because I'm a person of color and I'm a woman as well. Often I can be the visible diversity factor in the room, and I don't like being that because I'm always thinking, am I here because I can contribute to this conversation, or does it make the other person comfortable that there is this person in the room, and therefore there's an equitable environment. And so I like an environment where I'm not the exception. So I'm actively looking for environments where, my thoughts are not an exception, my lifestyle or my views are not an exception. So you don't need previous career experience. Your own life experiences educate you enough to know what you would like to achieve. And I think authenticity is really important. It's really difficult to maintain a facade, and it gets exhausting, having that many versions of yourself. So again, echo what Dax was saying. And I think, again, you're good enough. You can always upskill technically, but the inherent person you are, the value system that you have, that is enough. And women are not victims. All we need is equal opportunities and equal access. That's what we're looking to have. We are very well educated. We are highly skilled, highly trained, but we just need the platform.
And there is progress being made, but there is so much more that needs to be had. And there is a lot of good news out there. For example, a few weeks ago, I think it was Tim Cook from Apple recently said that there's a lack of women in the tech industry, and that needs to change. So we're seeing big senior leaders within Silicon Valley saying this. So I'm curious, Jyotsna, what do you think about when you hear that Tim Cook quote there? And also, is there anything else that inspires or makes you hopeful about the future?
I'm going to go back to what Dax said earlier in the beginning of this conversation. Culture. Yeah. Is Tim Cook creating the right culture to attract, retain, sustain, and grow women? Yeah. And I think that technology is beyond the technical aspects of engineering and, releasing codes and products. Technology requires a huge amount of skills that is not necessarily embedded in the development life cycle as such. And so it takes almost like a village to, operate the technology components and deliver the business outcomes. And so I would say that, to that statement, it's really about how deeply is Apple or Tim Cook introspecting and determining structurally and environmentally, culturally, what is it that hasn't added up? Because, Apple probably has a huge budget to do marketing. They probably are a desirable organization based on the performance, and they're a household name. I doubt there are many women who have not heard of the company Apple. So what is it? Why are the women not picking up the email or sending the CV across? So I think there's more questions for them to explore within their own organization. In terms of inspiration, I personally take a lot of inspiration from Helen Keller, right from when I was a child. I grew up with my parents sort of saying, she had the same amount of time that you do. So I stopped saying I don't have time because that was something told very early in my sort of life. And to have those constraints that she had physically, but her mind was so incredible that she was able to achieve so much. I just get really inspired by her. And so through my personal life and my career, there are times when I think something is challenging. I always think, she did it. I need to figure out a way forward. And it's always a prioritization call. And it's a choice that we make. We are not without choice. Sometimes the choices are hard. That's what it is. It's a degree of difficulty in making the choice, but we do have choice as women. And I take inspiration from Helen Keller.
Love that. And there is an argument that we should, when we're talking about Tim Cook, of course, again, we're looking at a man for inspiration. And I'm not sure how you feel about that. So Dax, what do you feel when you read that quote, what the future looks like and who inspires you?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. What I would say to Tim Cook is that I've just written my book called The Entrepreneurial Quotient. And maybe he should have a little read. So, you know, he can get the inspiration from women rather than the other way around. The reason I say that, and I say it slightly smiling, is because within there, one of the concepts that we talk about is deep community. And that's a deep community about building your entrepreneurial business, which Apple clearly has a lot of positivity around it. And it's a fantastic organization. But actually, the deep communities that are within there are also sub-communities in terms of how you set up your organisation. And so, you know, moving from that community itself to that deep connectivity, there is a set of activities as a leadership group that you would also put in place to make your brand resonate with women. In this case, I mean, there are other communities as well, but we're talking about women. And how that tribal belonging and really those deep tribes that you create, how does that resonate to where women are in society, what their ambitions, dreams are, what they want to attain from themselves, and also how does the Apple brand then sit with that? So there are some tips in the book around that specifically, not necessarily for the community of women alone, but for creating these different groups in terms of how you deepen your business. And also it's very, very positive because actually the top quartile firms are not only doing this, but they're doing it in such an effective way that they are, you know, bringing communities. Women hold a lot of financial and monetary decision-making power. So by getting those things right, you're actually growing your company, your business and your firm. So Tim, please read the book.
Fantastic advice. I'll be checking that out myself before Tim gets his hands on it. And Rachel, anything you'd like to add? We've talked about the problems, but I'd love to hear more about what inspires you and what you thought about that Tim Cook comment.
I think that there aren't enough women in technology in general, but obviously that problem impacts different companies with different severity. And I think culture is the main driver. You know, people's perception when they hear company X is recruiting, is it or isn't it a place for me? You know, if people start talking to me about beanbags, for example, I immediately want to leave the room. So, you know, whereas other people would be very excited about the prospect of having a meeting on a beanbag. So again, it's about how you're portraying your company. And also ensuring that portrayal isn't patronizing, you know, that there isn't a one way to attract women and another way to attract men. There's a way to shape and formulate the culture that you desire. You know, quite often people will talk about, you know, softer language, female language. That in itself, again, would make me get off the beanbag and leave the room. So it's just about pitching it right, really. I'm most inspired by two things, really. So one is when a business person, female or not, but let's go for female at the minute, has an idea and they go for it. And you hear the, you know, small businesses who, you know, I found this problem, I found a gap, and I've actually gone for it and done it. And actually, there are so many female entrepreneurs, small business owners right now, especially around, you know, the Northwest, Greater Manchester. It's just so inspiring. So I love seeing that. And I love the tenacity. And I see that a lot, particularly in young women as well, that confidence to just go for it. And I kind of admire that greatly. The other one is there are people in my team, for example, and I see, you know, in other teams alongside myself who have, again, stumbled accidentally within IT and at the beginning were full of apologies about their lack of technical knowledge. I've not worked in IT before. And then within a matter of weeks, you see them say, actually, I've got all those people to come into this room and talk, and I'm coordinating these people 10 levels above me because they can't do that themselves. They've needed me to do that. And that growth of confidence in themselves. And then, you know, a year later, you're having a conversation with them about, you know, well, I thought I might look at product management, and I just almost want to kind of go through the screen or go over to them and hug them. I don't, obviously, workplace rules, but it's just this amazing feeling of thinking that just giving that person the space to really look at what they're bringing to the table and who they are, I'm really inspired by that, and it gets me excited about this amazing industry and about the kind of potential, the opportunities that there are, the excitement of having so many problems to solve, and just how good that makes me feel every day, and seeing that in other people that have joined the team, that for me is very inspiring, and I think makes quite a difficult day bearable when I see some of that happening as well.
And as I said a few moments ago, all three of you have had hugely successful careers. And I suspect if you were to just sit and reflect on your career and look back at the challenges that you've had to overcome, you've also seen a lot of changes. So the big question to finish on here, and Rachel, I'll let you answer this first, is do you actually feel the industry is shifting to be more inclusive? Is this something that you're seeing?
I think the terminology is all there. There's the groups, there's the championing, there's the senior leaders who are the champion for each individual thing. And I do think there's a fashion and trend, and one protected characteristic seems to get backing for a while and then it goes away again. And there's a lot less overt sexism, racism, etc., I believe, unfortunately, there are still behaviours. There's still hiring decisions where language is being used around, a safe pair of hands. We just know that he can do the job or they can do the job. I still feel there's a long way to go. And I think a big factor around that is around flexibility, particularly in middle and senior management for technology jobs. Everybody wants their CIO, product manager, project manager to be 24/7 available. And actually that in itself is a bit of a barrier. I'm still not seeing that in practice, I guess, actually come out in fruition and really become part of the culture. So those big loud noises have gone, but we've still got some of the sounds of prejudice happening and some behaviours that are still going on. But can I say it's going in the right direction? I believe so. I mean, I'm in the position I'm in, so something's going in the right direction for me. But I know others that are still feeling as though there are barriers there. There are ceilings that they're not able to get through. So I want more to be done more quickly.
And I think away from this conversation, a lot of brands now are getting a lot of negative headlines around things like greenwashing and virtue signaling rather than doing any actual actions or making it better. So, Dax, I'm curious, do you think the industry is becoming more inclusive and it's not just a big campaign and people ticking boxes and there's real action going on here?
I believe there's some real action.
Yeah.
And I believe there's a lot of conversation. And genuinely, I look at the stats. So when I see the stats start to rocket, then we'll see the difference. There's still some stagnant stats. There are some areas and pockets that are growing. But let's get real. There's a lot more to do.
100% with you on that. And Jyotsna, to bring us home on the conversation today, look, if you look back on your career and where we're heading now, are we heading in the right direction?
I think people are showing the willingness to participate, to educate, be more aware, be more conscious of it. I feel that the secret sauce to inclusivity is respect. If you respect the differences, if you respect how others work, which is different to you, if you use respectful language, whether to invite people to join you or to explain the way they're doing is not appropriate for what the organization needs, I think that we'll have a much more inclusive organization, whether it's women or, across the gender spectrum or the neurodiversity spectrum as well. So I think there is a willingness, but I also feel that people need to say less and do more. I see a lot of people declaring their intentions, and I can see that the regulators and the government bodies are trying to put pressure on producing statistics. So I don't want it to become a league table exercise, because then, that sustained change at the deep communities, to use the borrow phrase from Dax, is not there. And therefore we'll never achieve that sustained, change of trajectory.
I would invite everybody watching and listening all over the world, don't just consume this content. Email us, check out more videos, and let's keep this conversation going. But more than anything, just a big thank you to Rachel, Jyotsna, and Dax for bringing this conversation out today. And thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of this Around the Water Cooler session. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of this Around the Water Cooler session as much as I did today. And remember, please check out the CIO Water Cooler website, where you will find a wide variety of conversations to explore. And please let us know what you would like to hear and see more of.